Hello and welcome for joining me. I'm Bart Poulson, and I am here to talk about data science for the 99%. And for those of you who were here last time, this is my second attempt at this one. I had some technical difficulties last time that led to everybody seeing an infinite regress of smaller and smaller pictures of me and nobody seeing my slides. I quickly figured out what that problem was and have resolved it. So we're going to be doing things properly this time. And again, thank you for your patience. If you're joining me live, I'm going to invite you to get in the comments and say hello and tell us where you're coming in from. We tend to get people from all around the world. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the Western United States, where it is simultaneously snowing and sunny today. But I'd love to know where you're from. You can feel free to leave a comment. You can't. Oh, am I still mute? I better check that one. Let me just check something here. Um, so am I still mute? I just need a yes or a no. This is just horrifying. Okay, we're good then. Thank you. I am accustomed to having a whole series of technical difficulties. Well, thank you for letting me know that it wasn't my problem this time around. So that's good to hear. Um, all right. Well, folks, I see people are coming from a lot of different places. We have one person from Seattle, Washington. We have another person from Chile. Um, we're international, so thank you so much. So let me explain a little bit what I want to talk about today, and it has to do with my own experience in the data science world. You know, by way of explanation, I have been working with data for professionally for over 30 years. Now, data science as a field has not existed that long, and I am primarily a teacher. I have a university job. I'm in uh, a behavioral science department. My PhD is in social psychology, and what I teach is the introductory statistics class. But I've also consulted a wide amount with very small local organizations and very huge global organizations. Um, in energy, in finance, in government. Um, and there's a lot of things I've learned from those experiences. There's some commonalities as well. And when I make courses for both my own company, datalab.cc, and for LinkedIn Learning, I try to draw on both my experience as a psychology professor and my experience of being a working statistical consultant in the data world. And oh my goodness, we've got Ryan in Philadelphia. We've got another user in the Philippines. We're everywhere. This is amazing. Um, what I'm going to turn off that thing that asks if I'm still mute because we have figured that out. Again, if you're just logging in, I'd love to know where you are. Say hello. And the I want to actually share a presentation with you today. Now, a lot of times for these office hours, it's me talking, but I do have a presentation that gives you some data about the data science world and where, you know, some of the options that people aren't always aware of. And so what I'm going to do right now is I am going to turn on that presentation. And I'll do that by going right here. So look, now if something goes horribly wrong, I am still here and I can see you and I have the comments available. So as I go through the presentation, please feel free to make a comment. I would love to know what your own experiences are. Again, this is a talk that I'm calling Data Science for the 99%. And because I'm following up from last week, this is take two. So here's what I want to talk about. Many years ago, the New Yorker magazine, wonderful publication, had this picture called View from Manhattan, and it's 9th Avenue in Manhattan. And what you get is this very detailed view of about 2 blocks. They're looking east. Then you have the Hudson, and then they have the rest of the United States in this square in the Pacific Ocean, then a few other countries. It's where they just, people know their familiar parts very well. You can see it a little closer this way. People know what they're used to very, very well. I grew up in Los Angeles and I knew my neighborhood really well, but I knew that other places existed in the LA area, but I didn't necessarily know where they were. And here I'm in Utah now. I have to constantly remind myself if some of these towns are north of me or south of me or west, or I know my place really well. And I think this is common in a lot of fields. And I think it's true in data science as in addition. And here's where this little myopia, this little nearsightedness applies to data science. Now, when you think about big data science companies, in fact, this is from an article published by Springboard called "The 22 Best Companies to Work For in Data Science," and this is from last year. And here are their top 5 companies: Microsoft, of course, with 220,000 employees. Amazon, which at that point in time had 1.5 million employees. EY, now I had to look that one up. That actually is the renamed version of Ernst and Young, which strictly speaking is an accounting company, but they are a full service business consulting company, and they've got 365,000 employees. Google, or more properly, Alphabet, with 150,000 employees, again, as of a year ago. And then VMware with 38,000. What's crazy about this list is it makes VMware look like a small company. But I think that they did over $60 billion of business last year. So, they're productive. Now, when you think about data science, when you think about the data world, you tend to think of these big companies. We have the FANG, the Facebook, Alphabet, Amazon. It used to be Netflix and Google, but you have these big companies. And yes, it's true, they do a lot of work. And when you think about what you could do in the data science world, well, we can go to this other list. That's from a website, Simply Learn, and they talk about the highest paying jobs in data science. And they include things like, well, surprisingly, data scientist, and then machine learning engineer, data architect, and so on. This is our list of usual suspects. And yeah, if you're looking for something that is absolutely just data science as classically defined, those might be the sorts of things you look for. Things change over time. Now, people are going to be looking a lot more for people to create generative AI algorithms, and things change quickly. But my point is that you don't have to be a dead center in the most stereotypical version of the data world in order to both draw on your experience, do something useful, and have a rewarding career. There's a lot of other options. So I want to talk about the 99%, and I want to give you 5 general principles that I created. And the very first one here is called See the 99%. See the 99% of businesses around you. And I'm going to give you a little bit of data about seeing what's all around you and not getting caught on these big companies that are like off in the sky. Here's a little bit of data. This is from the United States, and it's from a few different sources. And it's the number of businesses in the United States by business size. And this is accurate as of last year, I think. And so there are about 33 million companies listed in the United States. 27 million have no employees at all. They're solo owners. It's, my company, datalab.cc, I'm the only person. I do hire somebody a few hours a week to help me with a couple of small things, but fundamentally, I'm a one-person company. The next up is the small to medium companies. Now, in the United States, that includes up to 500 employees, so 1 to 499. If you're in other countries, you will draw a distinction between small and medium, or sometimes you have micro or nano businesses. But in the United States, the small and medium businesses, SMB, the upper limit's 500, and that's another 6 million businesses here in the US. So 6 million out of 33 million total. And then when you look at companies that have more than 500 employees, so that's going to be Google, that's going to be Amazon, that's going to be my university where I teach. There are only 20,000 and change companies in the entire United States that are that big. That you don't even see a bar. They are hardly there. This is 0.06% of the 33 million companies in the United States. So, in terms of head count, this is a microscopic number of organizations. And so, really, when I talk about data science for the 99%, I really should be clear it's data science for the 99.94%. That is everybody except the giant companies. Another way to look at this, and it's important, is because the big companies employ a lot of people, is to look at the total number of employees by the company size. Again, this is for the US. And what you see here is that, well, the companies with no employees, the solos, well, that's the 27 million that we had before because they just employ themselves and nobody else. The small to medium businesses, 1 to 499, that's 98 million and change. That's almost 100 million um, people employed in small to medium businesses. And you can see it's by far the largest group. It's about 2/3 of the total. And then at the bottom are the very large corporations. And while they are, well, only a small number of corporations are that big, they do employ about 30 million people. So it's about the same as the number of solo companies, but together they're only half as much as the small to medium businesses. And so what this tells you is that when you're looking to have impact in the business world, the small to medium businesses and really the solo professionals are a huge group that are worth looking at. So, with that in mind, with a little bit of data as our background, let's talk about what we can learn about the 99% and how the data world can be useful to them. The first one is to just learn to look at the businesses around you as you're going down the street. What companies do you see? I'm in a residential area, but 1 block from my house is this tiny little place that sells microgreens, and it's by appointment only. A few blocks down from that is a person who runs a therapy business in a separate space. Another block down from that is the public library, small branch. And then a couple blocks down from that is a giant hospital and all the doctor's offices. And so we've got those within 1 mile of my house. Um, and so kind of look around. You're going to see things like bakeries and breweries. We have both of those within a mile or so of my house. Doctors and lawyers, many of whom are solo practitioners or small businesses, architects and contractors, and then performing arts groups. All of these are small organizations that could potentially really benefit from the insights that you're able to give from your data work. Now, one interesting thing to know about these small businesses is that unlike the really big tech companies, Google and who all you see, big tech companies are built for splashy IPOs and they're going to have investors and they're going to make a lot of money. And they are focused on growth above all else. Get bigger, bigger, more customers, more clients, more contracts, more money, make the stock price go up. That is one way to run your business. But you know what? For most of the small and medium businesses and the solo practitioners, that is not their game. They are in what is called a lifestyle business. Now, that makes it sound like that they're being Instagram influencers. Um, all it means is that they're trying to run a business that pays their bills. It's their job. They are not necessarily interested in getting bigger and bigger and bigger because that, you know, managing a large company is a whole different skill set. We've got a restaurant a few blocks away from me, and the people who own that have 2 or 3 locations, but I don't think they're trying to become some sort of national chain because then that becomes a whole other ball game. They're trying to get something that's going to be reliable employment and income and hopefully retirement for the people who own it and the people who work there. And so the lifestyle business is important. So my company, datalab.cc, now it's really just me, and um, it is fundamentally a lifestyle company. I have clients, but I'm not trying to create a giant, bigger organization where I hire more and more and more people. I'm perfectly happy having to stay with just me. And I'm perfectly happy with the clients I have. And I have no desire to expand it further than that because I'm getting paid really well for the amount of work that I'm doing. And I'm very comfortable with that. And this is sustainable. And so in that case, it's a lifestyle business. So you're not always looking for more. Really, you just want to be able to pay your bills and have enough time that you can go out riding your mountain bike with your dog next to you. That's a great thing, and not have to wait until retirement. Be able to do it now. So that's one of the big differences about small and medium businesses. Now, when it comes to questions that they want, here are some of the common questions in the times that I have worked with these businesses. These are things that they're interested in. What days and times should they be open? The microgreens person isn't open ever. It's by appointment only. So that's an interesting one. How can they simplify record keeping? I worked with an organization. They had a bunch of volunteers working with them. They were literally keeping track of everything on pieces of paper and pencil. Um, we were able to help them find a better way. How to connect with donors. This is a huge question for all nonprofits in the world. And I've worked with a lot of them. They survive off of donations. And so this is one of their main concerns, and one of the best places to have impact in data work is who are their highest impact donors? How do they identify them? How can they connect with them? And what can they do? What are some of their popular products and services? And especially when you consider the ROI, or the return on investment. Some things might be very popular, but maybe they're difficult to do. And so they want to find something that's a little easier or a little more reliable. And then maybe they're in a service oriented organization, like my friend who's a therapist down the street. How do they help their audience? What can they do that is best suited, not to making money or extracting value, but to delivering something that makes their people's lives better? And these are common questions. And I know these might sound obvious, but they are fundamentally different questions than, say, for instance, Amazon is asking. Um, and so it's a different approach to data, but it's very, very useful for this large group of people. The next step, number three, is to adapt your methods to the 99% of businesses. Really, what this means is keep it simple. I mean, seriously, a spreadsheet is going to be your best bet, and a line chart and a bar chart are going to answer 90% of your questions. You don't need to fire up the AWS servers. I know this, by the way, because I was once doing a project where I worked with some tiny nonprofits, and I had some people showing up to volunteer, and their first question was whether I was going to be providing AWS instances. I said, we're working with a spreadsheet with 100 rows in it. And so a line chart to look at changes over time, bar charts to compare different groups are going to answer a huge number of questions. I also strongly endorse the use of you can call minimally sufficient tools. And I have my own little hierarchy, and it says first, start with spreadsheets. It's the simplest tool and it's the most generally available for the widest number of people. Work with that. It might be sufficient for what you're doing. And stay with spreadsheets unless and until it's no longer easy to do what you need to do. Then go to step two, an app. This is the icon for Jamovi, which is one of my very favorite statistical applications. It's free, it's open source. It looks like SPSS, but it runs on R, and it's a beautiful way. So if you need to do multiple regression, or if you need to do cluster analysis, Jamovi is a great way to do that. Other apps like SPSS are also very popular. And there are a lot of things that you can do there, probably 99% of what you need, but you might hit a glitch. Data prep can be a little hard in these. And if you're trying to do something like a neural network, well, forget it. In that case, you're going to go off to step three, languages. I use R because I'm a data analyst by training. But if you're coming from the computer science world, you're probably more comfortable with Python. Either one works. But the idea is to use the simplest tool that will adequately address your questions. I use spreadsheets every single day of my life. I use the apps a few times a month. I use the languages only as needed. Number four is learn how to connect with these 99% of businesses. Now, the easiest way to do this is by, for instance, going to a meetup group. I know that those were very popular before the pandemic, and then everybody had to move online, but in-person meetups are back and functioning again. And then this is a great way to connect with people individually and talk with them about what kind of businesses they do, what sorts of things they're looking for, and really how you can be of assistance. So, for instance, cou- a couple of general ways to connect in the United States are to go to small business development centers, SBDC. Um, most large cities have these. And if you can connect with your local small business development center, then you can connect with small businesses and you can find a way to help them. Also, you may have a local chamber of commerce. It's a great way to connect because, again, small businesses are going to be familiar with them. And it's a good way to connect. More specifically, these two on the bottoms are ones that I have actually used. I'm a member of the Utah Nonprofits Association. I'm not a nonprofit myself, but I work with nonprofits, and it's a good way to connect with them. And then I have presented on data topics at the Mountain West Arts Conference, a regional arts conference. But like I said, they're nonprofits and they need to know how to work with data. And so that was a very well attended presentation, and it's a great way to share your expertise. The last thing I want to mention is enabling the 95, excuse me, the 99%. So find ways to help them develop skills. That's a great thing to do. Um, tell them what you're doing and tell them what kind of questions can be easily answered, what's harder. I'm working with a nonprofit right now and having to explain that you can Google Trends is really great for some kinds of data, but you have to deal with sparse data. And there's a lot of things that you won't be able to address, at least not at a really fine grain. You can't look at small towns at small points in time. You have to aggregate a little to get reliable data. Now, that actually is part of an event that I've created called the Data Charrette. Charrette means creative activity under extreme time pressure. And this is an event I've done several times, including a few weeks ago. I created this to pair up local nonprofits who have data that they need analyzed and volunteers, students or working professionals, and they spend a day or two working with them. The one that we did back on April 13, we worked with Bicycle Collective, a nonprofit that receives donated bicycles, fixes them, and shares them with others. And we worked with Encircle, an LGBTQ plus support organization, where we're helping them look at the relative interest in certain search terms across places. But there's lots of ways to volunteer. There's a fabulous organization called Data Kind that does very high level machine learning. And if you got that expertise, consider looking into them. But also, just look for other opportunities to serve. Data science for social good or data for social good is another option. There are a few others, but it's worth looking at. Um, when you do your work with these organizations, try to find ways to do things that make their life simple. Label and organize your materials when you share them with them. Include dictionaries so they know what all the variables are, what things mean, and include a list of the steps. Or ideally, include the code that is generously commented. Provide reusable templates, both for analysis, for gathering data, for presenting, so that they can build on the work that you help them with. And then share your training materials. I make free courses that I share on datalab.cc. They're also available on YouTube. I've shared them with a number of other organizations, and I know that they've been really useful for them. This is something that you can do as well. Finally, you might consider actually joining the team. you know, a huge number of people who are lawyers do not work as lawyers. They work as people who understand the law and they perform other functions within organizations. You don't have to have your job title be data scientist. My job title is psychologist, but what I am is a statistics instructor. Um, and I am a data consultant. There are so many ways to find opportunities to build on your skill set and to make yourself useful that are all around. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is I have a newsletter called Data is for Doing. And a few months ago, actually last year, I wrote a newsletter issue on this exact topic, data science for the 99%. I can see it was the June of 2023. And if you go to this URL on the right, You can either scan that code or you can go to bit.ly/ds-99, which stands for Data Science for 99%. You can get straight to that newsletter issue. I talk about these things. You'll see it's the same steps, but I can give you more detail and more references there. And so that really is what I wanted to talk about. I'm assuming that because you're here, you've got some really useful data skills. And I'm assuming that you have found ways to make them useful in a lot of different contexts. You don't have to go for the big, shiny thing because working for a major tech company, we've learned recently, they've also had massive amounts of layoffs. It can also be a very high pressure situation. I'm happy with the situation I have. Things have worked out very well for me being a professor and being a consultant without having to go work for a tech company full time. And it's an opportunity to reach a huge number of people. Again, 99.94% of businesses who could benefit from your data in the United States are either zero employees, just the owner themselves, or they are small and medium businesses, fewer than 500 employees. There is so much potential to take what you have and offer it to both make it better for them and to develop your own skills. Um, I strongly encourage you to take those recommendations and to see what opportunities are available out there. And I'm available. You can send me messages on LinkedIn. You can contact me, and I'd be happy to share my own experiences with you more and give you some tips on some of the specific first steps that I've used in my own career. But it would also be an opportunity in the comments for this particular video, which will be posted uh, within a minute after we're done. This video will be available on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. But if you simply make comments in the beneath the video on LinkedIn, we have ways that we can support one another with our own experiences and find ways to better serve the community around us. And with that, folks, we are done. And I'm so glad that you gave me the second chance to give my presentation, this time with the actual slides there, because this is an important topic to me. And I'm hoping that you can find a way to take your own skills and really make the community around you a better place. Folks, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.